pertinent to you. And now, what we all have been waiting for. Corey Campbell is the CEO and founder of Mastermind Training and Consulting, a Honolulu-based company specializing in the design and development of custom programming to enhance organizational leadership and customer service skills. He works with organizations and their top leaders to improve their leadership style, communication skills, team dynamics, personal branding, company culture, and their ability to motivate others and drive the organization. Please join me in welcoming Corey Campbell.
All right, thank you so much, Raymond, DJ, Leonard, Sherry, Crystal, everyone for setting up this session. And honestly, thank you to everyone for joining. I take this very seriously. You're giving me a gift of your hour, and we're gonna turn it around and turn it into a high energy, high action oriented session. Raymond, thank you for that introduction. As you were saying that, what I often think about is what do I try to do in leadership? It's bring people back to the power of intentions every single day and setting your intentions. And, I think we all, as we went through this pandemic and through COVID, and, I love to do this kind of training in person and hear people's stories. What I found is oftentimes during COVID, we were able to slow down. We were able to wake up and set intentions for this day. Like, who's important in my life? How do I want to connect? How do I want to look after myself? What is meaningful in my business? And then, if I could ask for a show of hands, I'd be curious how many of you have gotten into a stage as life came back where it's like, now I'm on the hamster wheel again, and I'm running and I'm trying to get everything done. And so we're gonna slow it down and bring it back to the power of every single morning, laying the roadmap for where you want to go that day with the power of intentions. And just to get us started, everyone, if you're able and you're sitting at a computer and you can go in a chat box, I want you just to answer this one question. What word describes who you want to be today? If you were just setting an intention for this day, what word would describe who you want to be? And if you're able, throw that into the chat box as we get started here. Intentional, I love it, Kelly, yes. Motivated, good, focused, productive, content, grounded, successful. Competent, yeah, approachable. Confident, purposeful, helpful, focused. Traveling, want to be on the move, good. Okay, and now whether you're answering on the chat box or just in your head, I want you to think about this. One person, and because we're directing this towards business, one client in your life today that you want to connect with and how you will do it. And you don't have to put that in the chat. Just think about that. Set this intention. One client, or if it's more of a personal interaction because you need to feel whole with this person in order to do business well, who's one person you're going to connect with and how will you do it? And put that how into it as well. And I see some other, some words coming up: effective, productive, good life. Okay, so as you think about that person, here's my belief, guys, and I think this is proven through generations. Where our focus goes, our energy flows. And I'm gonna share my screen as we go through this. I'll do some slides. So where focus goes, energy flows. So what if we start to really maximize our focus and say, let me get very disciplined in my thought and let me live with authenticity, live with intention, and understand where I want to be each day. And I first really started understanding the power of intention from Oprah. So I just wanted to kick off this session with a quick story. I read this book about a year ago, What Happened to You? It's an amazing book of a child psychologist named Bruce Perry, talking about in life, we ask the wrong question when we're trying to understand people. We often say, what's wrong with you? Why are you doing this? And the real question is, what happened to you? Like, where in your life did your desire for what you want in life, get impacted in some way? And as Oprah, she kind of co-wrote this book with him, as he's telling the story about this, Oprah said, I've come to realize that the power of intention is what means everything in the world. And she tells this story of when she started her career, and in her TV shows, her first intention was to be liked. And she said, it was unbeknownst to me, it was almost subconscious, but then I started attracting the wrong kind of audience. And she brought on some white supremacists on her show. These are her words. And she said, the show went horrible. And I thought I was doing it because I could shed light on something that was really tough and it would make me more liked. And she went back and, Yes. Yep.
Oh. All right, go on.
Oh, okay. All right. Great. And she said, let me step back and understand, what is my real intention? And she changed that intention into being a force of good. And she said everything in her life switched from that point. She went on to amazing success because it became about being a force for good. So in her words, and Crystal, were you going to ask about the guide?
Do you want me to put that into the chat box?
That'd be great. Yeah.
Okay, I'll do it right now.
Everyone, Crystal is dropping what I call an activation guide into your chat box. This, honestly, just for this session, feel free just to listen and process as we go. But what you'll get at the end of this, or as she uploads that, is a guide that can take everything that we've talked about, because we've only got one hour, a little less than an hour, and really turn it into action for you with your clients and with your business and how you drive that in your life. So just so you know, that's coming. As we get back to Oprah though, so that in order to step in the most powerful version of yourself, you need to have clarity of intention. You need not to know just what you want, but why you want it. And so I pose this to everybody as we get started here. What is it in every single interaction? What is it that you're trying to do with that client? What is it that you're trying to make them feel? How is it that you're trying to make them get into a place of being in a special relationship with you? And we're going to talk about 5 fundamental ways to really meet every human being's needs. But that first intention of, why do I do this? What's the purpose behind my actions? What wakes me up every single morning? And Gary Zukav, who wrote a great book called The Seed of Soul and talks a lot about intention, had this quote that you'll see there. Every action, thought, and feeling is motivated by an intention, and that intention is a cause that exists as one with the effect. So if we participate in the cause, it's not possible for us not to participate in the effect. Meaning this, everybody, and this is where life gets serious. Oh, perfect. I see Joshua. This is where life gets serious. It is so easy to hand off what happens in our life to external circumstances, right? And in many ways, that would be fair. COVID was a great example. It impacted business in so many ways. But what I like to think about every single morning is, how do I take 100% ownership of what I own? And if my actions have an impact on every single effect, well, then I have the power to create what I want when I slow it down and just take ownership of that moment. And one of my favorite stories about taking the power of intention to the next level, there's a story about Scandinavian Airlines. In the 1980s, a CEO named Jan Carlrich took over, and in 2 years, he turned them from one of the worst performing airlines in the industry to one of the best. And what he talked about is this idea of a moment of truth. And he said, in every single interaction with every customer that comes through, it's a moment of truth. We can capture this moment and really take care of that person and see that person for who they are and what they're experiencing, what their needs are, or we can miss it. And so that gets into the power of intention. I've loved this quote from Lewis Carroll my whole life. If you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. So the idea of being intentionally based, and I'm just reading the comments there, intention means very simple, a determination to act in a certain way. So how do we really capture this idea? Everyone, I show this at the beginning of every session I do. This is, I believe, my purpose as your facilitator in this session is to push us a little outside our comfort zone, to challenge you in whatever way I can in a comfortable way, to get you to think, what is it that I want to do differently? I'm a big believer in life that every single day we have the option of transformation, changing one little thing to lead to different results. There's a book called Atomic Habits by a guy named James Clear, and he just says, tiny changes, remarkable results. As you get into this session, what are some tiny intention setting differences that you want to make to shift how your business operates? And as obviously there's a whole array of people on this call. I know there's a lot of realtors. I know everyone is affiliated with the real estate industry, but I want you to think about this. Sometimes I get those flyers in the mail and I see all the real estate agents and I go, wow, so what would I have to do to stand out, to be different? And if I want something different, how do I do what no one else is doing? And I like to look at it this way. We oftentimes can look at different people and go, okay, how do I do better than them or whatnot? I actually think the magic and the power is looking internal and saying, what do I need to operate from a place of being so whole that I can give to others? So with more time, we could talk a lot about how to get to that place of wholeness right inside. But ultimately, it starts with every single morning, everything you wake up, how you do anything is how you do everything. And just take a moment, just look at that quote. How you do anything is how you do everything. And so we're going to start off this section just talking about the power of choice in waking up and how we start our day. And I want to show you a quick little video. It's a minute and a half. This is from a general named William H. McRaven. He was a former Navy SEAL. This is a great speech. If you want to watch the whole thing later, it's the commencement address to the University of Texas in 2014. And he talks about the 10 ways to change the world. I'm going to show you just a short clip of one way that he talks about. And you know, the quick setup to this is he says in Navy SEAL training, you're doing all these crazy things. You're becoming trained to be a warrior. But there was one aspect every single morning that his leaders would come in and do. And take a look at this.
Every morning in SEAL training, my instructors, who at the time were all Vietnam veterans, would show up in my barracks room, and the first thing they'd do was inspect my bed. If you did it right, the corners would be square, the covers would be pulled tight, the pillow centered just under the headboard, and the extra blanket folded neatly at the foot of the rack. It was a simple task, mundane at best, but every morning we were required to make our bed to perfection. It seemed a little ridiculous at the time, particularly in light of the fact that we were aspiring to be real warriors, tough, battle-hardened SEALs. But the wisdom of this simple act has been proven to me many times over. If you make your bed every morning, you will have accomplished the first task of the day. It will give you a small sense of pride, and it will encourage you to do another task, and another, and another. And by the end of the day, that one task completed will have turned into many tasks completed. Making your bed will also reinforce the fact that the little things in life matter. If you can't do the little things right, you'll never be able to do the big things right. And if by chance you have a miserable day, you will come home to a bed that is made, that you made. And a made bed gives you encouragement that tomorrow will be better. So if you want to change the world, start off by making your bed.
All right, so hopefully you got to kind of listen and appreciate what he said. In person, I love to ask people, like, how many even make your bed? Because I was one of those people who did not make my bed every morning. I saw this a long time ago, and I started thinking about this idea. Okay, yeah, if everything that I do speaks to the next task, how do I start to set intentions to just do it? I see DJ coming in, yes, every day. Whether it's your bed, whether it's not, it's like, how are you setting yourself up for success every single morning? Because it truly does. Everything starts within. And so we're moving into this direction of saying, all right, every morning I wake up then, I've got to start paying attention to what are the thoughts, almost the subconscious thinking that goes into my brain. And I like to kind of joke with everybody on this power of choice. Like, what if every single morning when you woke up, what if the first intention setting question you had to answer popped up right there on your phone? Good morning, which one do you want today? And you had to like physically touch a button. Because I believe in many ways, this is the first intention of the day. And you know, this kind of, we can back this up into the day before, like, you know, oftentimes we go to bed the night before thinking about the stressors and the what's going to happen tomorrow, and then we don't sleep very well. And we wake up, or what happened yesterday, and we wake up thinking about this, like, what did I not do? And then, right, by very definition, we live in the past if we're marinating on yesterday's thoughts. So the idea of intention setting at its very core is, let me start this day fresh. And of course, things can change and things can impact, but let me start off setting the intention of this day ahead. And, you know, for a lot of my real estate friends, and my quick background, everybody thinks, you know, Randy mentioned in the beginning, but I came up through hotels here in Waikiki. I was in rooms operations, restaurant operations, and then I landed in my passion place, which was people and leadership development. But I've gotten to, like, I have a lot of friends here on the island that do real estate, and whenever I talk to them about open houses, and I'd be curious if I could see your faces, how many of you feel this, I always get a very interesting reaction to open houses. And oftentimes the reaction is like, oh my gosh, people walk in, it's frustrating and all these things. And I get it. I can imagine, right? It makes perfect sense. But what if before you walked into that open house, this was the intention setting button that you had to answer? I'm going to own this open house. I'm going to create interactions, create relationships, no matter what. I'm not going to allow anybody to deter me from this track, or I'll let people frustrate me. And I really believe, right, at some level, this is kind of how our brains are operating. At this, the hard part is it's subconscious. Or, what is your question for today? What does that look like? How could you start to own it? And one of the most core intentions of setting is just your purpose. I kind of mentioned this at the front of this. So as we talk about your purpose, what is your purpose in this next day? And how do you take it into every single thing that you do? One way I look at selling, any type of selling profession, it's if you look at it as I've got to go sell, well, that's a tough intention. That means I am putting the success of my interactions on someone else, right? Whether they buy or not. What if selling is just, I'm going to build relationships? Okay, so that means no matter what happens today, I'm going to own every single interaction. And I really believe this. One of the most profound intentions to set in life is deciding that every person that you meet brings value and is worth your time. And I think this can be a challenging intention, right? And especially in an open house situation where people are coming in and moving around. But what if we set that intention? And I want to back this up. My last role here in Waikiki before I broke off and started my own business was director of training for the 4 Starwood hotels, the Sheraton Waikiki, the Royal Hawaiian, the Moana Surf Ride, and the Sheraton PK. And I want to bring in a concept that we talked about in hotels. We drove this into every single thing that we did with our training, building loyalty beyond reason. What we meant by this was if we could create such an emotional connection with a guest to where if one of our competitors had a discount, right, or had a cheaper room or whatnot, or maybe they built a new hotel, we wanted our loyal guests saying, I don't care. Like, this is my group. They know me, they feel me, I belong there, I'm special, they understand my needs. So this is the goal, to build loyalty beyond reason. So how do we get loyalty beyond reason? Well, we're gonna talk through 5 ways, but some kind of just core topics at the top of this. First, falling in love with your client. Waking up, who you have on your call list or who you're gonna be taking around. It's falling in love with them. Understanding what life is like for them. What are their fears, their challenges, what's going through their mind as they get into this vehicle or as they meet at this place. What do they need in life? What would make them feel successful? And then how do you show that genuine care? Like, it's deeper than just I'm here. It's like, let me prove to you that I'm here for you. And the way I love to describe this is make them the hero of their story. We've all watched a movie where you get to see this hero and you get a sense of it and it's like, oh, great for them. What if my whole goal is to make you feel that I'm with you and this is your story and I am here to support and build you up? Make them the hero of their story. What does their story look like? How does it sound? How does it feel? And how do we turn that into not just like passive interactions, right? But really getting into this beautiful active relationship building. And, in real estate, I think about it this way: active relationship building, open houses, lunch meetings, popping by and seeing people, versus passive relationship building, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But the farming mailers, sending holiday cards, digital emails, customer relationship management emails, those are all important and they play an element. But how do you take it in that next level to show that you truly care? And I often like to ask people this very simple question. And Paul, I see that question popping up. We'll get you a copy of the deck too. This is where, we just step into the discomfort a little bit. On a day-to-day basis, how are my interactions? Do they tend to be more in the transactional state, or do they tend to be interactional? And of course, there's a mix and a balance of all those things. But this is where we start to dive in and go, what for you, listening to this today, what is it that you want to take away and shift? One of my favorite quotes, I'm sure you all heard this, it's a Joseph Campbell quote. He said, "The cave that you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek." And so when I assess and analyze my business, my intentions, I like to come back and go, what is it that I'm not doing that maybe is even scary? Maybe it's showing up in a different way. Maybe it's expressing myself. Maybe it's really trying to take my business to the next level. Now, Walt Disney said this, and I've always loved this: do what you do so well that they will see it and they'll want to come again and bring their friends. So how do I get a sense of who you are? And as we tie this into what is your why, and this is just a quick little segment, there's a great book called Start With Why. It's actually a great TED Talk from Simon Sinek. But what he talks about is people don't buy what you do. They buy why you do it. So that means in real estate, it's not necessarily that I'm choosing you as my realtor or engaging with you because of what you do. It's when I can understand and connect with your purpose. You know, for example, my whole purpose is to create for you the life that you want to have, right? When I really infuse that into my being and it comes through me, well, then everything I talk about, right, links into that. I'm drawn towards that. And so one question I like to ask everybody in life, just at the beginning of purpose, is what is your why? What wakes you up in the morning? What gets you going? What's the deeper meaning that you have to giving your time and giving your energy and giving that commitment of your life? Because we can all agree that work is tough, and when you work with people, it can become very, very challenging. But when you can return to your why, and I really think this can take months, this can take years to fully formulate what is it that drives me. Years back when I started Akamai, I did the work on really understanding what is it that gets me going. My why statement became to ignite people's souls, to live more energized and engaged and inspired. And I realize I feel great when I'm with someone and just experience them loving their life more. So how do we start to deliver that and give that to others? And as we turn that into today, right, and setting intentions from that purpose, well, if that's my purpose, well, today, maybe it's as simple as this: how do I cultivate one new meaningful relationship? One new relationship. If I'm going to the grocery store, if I walk into that grocery store with the intention of, I'm gonna see if I can just create an interaction with someone, right? Or maybe it's just about taking care of those that you're already with. So how do I create an interaction with 3 current clients? Do something different. If it's open house, how as I walk in, as I am there, how do I make everyone who comes in feel special in some way? If you have children, I've always found, like, parents at children's soccer games, oftentimes, right, the intention, of course, is to be there present for your child, and great, but while you're there, how do you set the intention of creating meaningfully with someone around you? And to give this kind of a model, we're gonna walk through 5 ways called the human needs that really deliver loyalty beyond reason. And the core of this is understanding that, like, 2 of these are really about foundational. We need to do these things to help people feel seen and heard. And then 3 of these, I call it substance versus sizzle, or the sizzle. They're making a memory. They're creating someone who goes, wow, like, when I'm around my realtor, I feel good about myself, and that's gonna draw me back in. And so here's the quick model that we'll be going over, everyone. For foundational, that's substance, we've gotta help people feel understood. We've gotta give them control. As we move into how then do we become memorable? Well, we're gonna help them feel special. We're gonna make them feel like they are a part of us, and then ultimately to reach that potential. And so I'm gonna move quickly over these concepts. They are in that guide that's coming out to you as well, because the real power of this is, at the end of this, is saying, for even at least each one, what is one thing that you'd like to do a little bit differently? For being understood, I look at it this way: how do you fully step into your client's mind? Like, have you ever done this, everyone, when you wake up and you're about to go be with a client, or even on a call before a meeting? Take a moment, do a short visualization of your mind, become this person. Like, move into their body and in their mind, consider, what's this like for this person? What are they thinking about? What are the fears? Who are the people in their life that they need to impress, right? Whether that's family or children. Why are they looking in to do this and get a house? Like, or if I'm selling, like, what does this provide for my family? And when you can fully step in and really start, and this also, by the way, it helps you understand, what do I not know about this person? Because the idea is, if you can, in words better than maybe they can even describe for themselves, really hit their joys, their fears, the problems or challenges that might come up. When you get a sense of this, you can help them feel truly understood. When you can get them to share in a vulnerable way, you know, as simple as saying, like, hey, what's scary about this for you? What's going through your mind that you're uncertain of? And, I want to make sure that I'm taking care of you in the way that you feel seen and you feel heard. I want to be that resource for you. So opening up that space for them. And then here's just some other questions you can ask, and think about. What is it, their needs, their wants, their excitements, as I was mentioning, right, who's important to them, significant others, children's, what's important to those people in their world? How can I make this person look good and look important to the important people in their life? And then what information do they need, and how do I give it to them in the way that they need? So as we boil that into simple questions you can ask, what do you got to do to understand them better? What information do you still need to ask? And what do they need from you in this moment to feel understood? It's often easy to say, do you have a friend in your life where when you talk with them, you feel like you are heard and seen? And when I can do this training in person, oftentimes there's a story or two that someone shares about a person who just makes them feel that way. And we have the power to do that with anyone that we're with, to maximize that moment of truth and help them get that sensation, right? The psychological safety of feeling understood. Now as we shift into more control. So what does a person need for control? Of course, there's all these different categorical things, right? We need the details, right? That I need to understand. I need the timeliness of things. I need the communication. I need the accurate information and education. And I need to understand. When you think about purchasing a house, I need to know what's ahead and what's important and what are these dates. But as you turn that into then getting into your client's mind, how do you understand their needs and wants and expectations? What challenges from a control perspective do you foresee? And can you imagine the power of already fixing their control elements before they have to ask? How do you proactively set them up for success? And then how do you communicate to them in a way that gives them the information that they need? We have so much going on in this world. The goal of any interaction with that client is to make them feel like I've handed off control to you in the way that you need. So as we turn that into some questions, what can you do to anticipate their needs? Before the meeting, spending a few minutes to say, how am I going to deliver this message in a way that they feel like, I've handed control back to them. I've given the information that they need before they need it. Now, these are foundational elements. This is just kind of making sure that we are taking care of them, the substance of the relationship. We're going to shift now to talking about how do we get into that sizzle. And the first one is feel special. And I want to tell you a quick story, everyone, it's a beautiful story about the power of making another human feel special. And it comes by the way of a guy named Scott Bedbury. He was the marketing guru for Nike back in the early 80s. And when Scott came into Nike, the story is this. He walks in and Nike says, hey, listen, we have the best shoes, the best apparel. We are Nike. And Scott Bedbury says, it's not enough to have great shoes and great apparel. We have to do something more. We have to shift how a person feels about themselves when they're wearing our shoes and our shirts. And this was kind of a novel idea at the time. And so they said, well, what do you mean? Like, we got the best stuff. And he said, yeah, but Adidas can copy you tomorrow. So what's the feeling that a person gets when they put on their Nikes? And for anybody, in this webinar, if you've ever owned a pair of Nikes, or in particular, a pair of Jordans, I love to ask people, how do you feel when you put those shoes on? Because Scott Bedbury was with the team that in the mid 80s brought on the slogan, just do it. And they got Michael Jordan. Hey, I see you, Kelly. They got Michael Jordan to come in and they said, this is about a feeling. So when you put on those shoes, do you run faster? Do you jump higher? Right? And at that time, it was silly to buy a pair of Jordans, right? Early 80s, I don't even know. I grew up in the 80s, but it was like, oh my gosh, this is stupid to buy a pair of Jordans. But people said, I don't care. When I put on these shoes, I become Michael Jordan. I played basketball my whole life. I remember I didn't eat lunch for like 2 years to save up to buy a pair of Jordans. Loyalty beyond reason, right? Doing things that don't make sense to be a part of it. When I put on those shoes, I remember I became Michael Jordan on the floor. Now, here's where this gets really interesting. Scott Bedbury left Nike, goes to Starbucks, walks into Starbucks, early 90s, and it's metal tables, metal chairs, and Scott Bedbury says, this doesn't make anyone feel special. At the time, a cup of coffee was probably 95 cents, and he said, we need to make this about a place where you feel good. Yeah, I see it, Joshua, I definitely jumped higher. We need to make this about a place where you feel good about yourself because you walk into. So he was part of the team that brought in, couches and recliners and workstations. And then part of their training became, it's not just calling out a coffee, it's calling out a person's name. Because as Dale Carnegie said, to that person, their name is the sweetest sound in the world. And so I love to ask people, 20 years ago, what are we at? Almost 30 years ago now, if someone had said, hey, we're going to charge you $5 for a cup of coffee, what would you have said? You'd have all said, no way, it's 99 cents. Fast forward to today, people pay $5, $6 and they go, thank you so much. How did they do that? It wasn't about just the coffee. It was about how you felt about yourself when you picked up that coffee. And I have found this to be true. If you know anyone who goes to the same Starbucks around the same time, they will have learned your name and your drink order. You will feel special. So here was Scott Bedbury's beautiful quote. It's not how you feel about the product or the service. It's how you feel about yourself when you associate yourself with that product or service. So as we tie this back into us today, this above all in this presentation, I think is the most important lesson. How do I, in every interaction with a person that I'm taking care of, how do I make them feel special about themselves because they are around me? What does that look like? Well, we'd have to get into what are the key elements that make this person feel special? And how do I go and above and beyond and before I'm being asked, how do I do this? How do I remember details about them? How do I express my gratitude for them? How do I make them feel special? How do I make this not about the product of the service or even the home? How do I make this about feeling about themselves? You all have your own ways. You all have ideas. Here's just a listing of them. I love this idea of even encouraging their dreams, right? Building in a person what they don't always see for themselves is such a powerful way to create an emotional connection. Giving them your undivided attention. I love to do this in a meeting with a person, to just take the intentional effort of putting a phone away, right? And to show them that I'm with you. That speaks volumes. Maybe it's a little surprise gift that has meaning to them. It's not how I feel about you as my realtor. It's how I feel about myself because I've made this decision to be with you. And so we get into how do you do that? What would you like to do to make your clients feel more special? You're going to be with them anyway. Set that intention. All right. I have found sometimes, right, in even dealing with clients, it's the ones that know how to push your buttons, right, or trigger you in ways, or maybe, so knowing that, we can already set the intention to rise above that and say, hey, I realize I understand this person. This is how this person operates. Let me help them feel special by go ahead and already solving the issues that they normally have so that I can be extremely present with them and I can focus on them and building their dreams and putting them as the hero of their story and making them feel special. How do you take that personalization to the next level? And then once they're in that special space, right, they're naturally going to start to feel like they belong. What we have talked about for years in hotels and feeling like someone belongs is how do you create an emotional connection? And this is a really fun way to think about this, everyone. Think about in your own life, a place that you have been recently. So let's take a restaurant, a store, anywhere where you were receiving service. Think about if you can remember the name of the grocery clerk, the server at a restaurant. Can you remember their name? Just take a minute and see if you can think of that. And when we do this in real life, I will tell you, typically, it is very rare for people to remember someone's name. And when they do, you can ask them, why do you remember their name? And almost always it is some version of, when I walk in there, they remember who I am. They know my kid's name. They know my pet's name. They created an emotional connection. And what's interesting about emotions, like psychologists talk about encoding. Why do we remember things? This is kind of neat. So when you attach an emotion to a stimulus, to something that has occurred, the likelihood for it to encode in your brain is much stronger. Here's a really tough example, but if I could ask any of you, where were you on 9/11/2001? I tend to find if you were in America at the time, almost everybody remembers exactly where they were and what they were doing in that moment. So that is attaching a very strong emotion, right, to what has occurred. If I asked you where were you at on 8/11/2001, you'd probably have no idea because we didn't attach that emotion. So as we tie this idea of emotional connections into service, well, how can I do something that actually sticks out in a way where you go, I'll remember them? Because if we do what other people expect, the reality is we likely won't remember it. You know, I take the easy example of going order food at a fast food place. What do you expect? I expect them, kind of smile, be nice, take my order, give me my food, right? What would they need to do then to go beyond expectation to trigger an emotion? Well, let's say you walked in and it was something as simple as, oh my gosh, that is such a beautiful necklace. Who gave you that? And let's say you happen to have a beautiful story about who gave you that, and now there's these emotions coming up. There's a chance that much greater chance that you will remember this person. So ultimately, that's what we're in the business of, right? In building relationships, we're about helping you feel like you're a part of us. You really belong. And one of the most critical ways we can do that is through details. And taking people up on those details, remembering the information about them, using that information. And what's deeper than that is actually exploring what's the system that could help me do this really, really well, right? Remember names, whether it's technology, whether it's big life events that have happened for them. And I want to share a quick story about this. I went to 2 years of high school in New Jersey, and New Jersey is one of the only states in the U.S., New Jersey and Oregon, that you don't get to pump your own gas. When you pull in, there's always a gas station attendant. And this is a true story. My political science teacher in high school told me his son was making a killing as a gas station attendant. And I was like, I don't get it. How is this possible? So here's what he would do. You drive in, first time you go to this gas station, he comes around, he's very friendly. Hey, he introduces himself, he creates a connection. Hey, my name is, Corey. Thanks so much for coming in. What can I get for you? And let's say you fill up with regular. Here's what he would do. He'd fill you up, and then most of the time, right, people pay with a credit card. If they didn't, he would get their name. But as he took your credit card and he ran it on a piece of white masking tape, he would write the person's name, Mr. Campbell, for example, for me, fill regular. And he would tape it on the inside of their gas tank. Now here's the neat thing. People never look at the inside of their gas tank because they always pull up and they pop it. So what he did is his system was this. When you pulled up, you would pop your tank. He'd open it up as he's coming around to the front of the car. So if it was your first time, there would be nothing. But after that, he'd see your name and your gas tank order, and he'd walk up to your door and say, hey, Mr. Campbell, thanks for coming back again. Are you filling up with regular again today, sir? And people started going, what? How is this guy, out of the hundreds of people cycling through this gas station, how does this person remember my name and my gas order? And he was friendly and he created a connection. People just started tipping him. He started making it a killing. So what is your method, right, to really make someone feel like they are seen, that they are heard, that they belong with you, that you know the details about them? And there's lots of different ways to remember names. I'm just going to pull up a few things here. Some of the best ways are just repeating the name, confirming it with the person, using it. Yeah, it's great, Linda. Linking it to another person that you know, because the magic of these moments is when I see this person, and when it's unplanned in particular, that the name still sticks in my head. So I just ask people, what's your method? How do you do it? And then as we build that out into just making people feel like they belong, how do you acknowledge, capitalize on, make sure people feel seen and heard for the little things in their life, the details that are big for them that maybe most people don't know? How do you show them that they truly are a part of you? You set these intentions, right? And I really believe this, in a great customer interaction model, we're actually paying attention to how often we have these interactions and creating ways to do it. And then that leads us into this last one of reaching our potential, right? So how do we help this person get to that next place in life? And sometimes, again, in working with they're chatting with friends who are in real estate, it's like there's so much, it can be so challenging to really take care of a person along the whole process. But, Tony Robbins said this one time, progress equals happiness. So it's like, how through this, how do I celebrate the little milestones where it's like, this is progress, right? You are moving, even though we haven't gotten this house or this, each house you've understood a little bit, right? How do I actually help you understand and alleviate some of your fears around that, to see the progression and moving up? because that's what starts to calm people down, right? And make them feel good about themselves. I'm not failing in this house hunting process or selling. I'm actually growing and I'm moving. So reaching potential, just a few, again, ideas for this as you think about this and process for yourself. How do I help them understand themselves even better and know what's ahead? How do I focus on their growth? Make sure that I'm giving back to them throughout the cycle. And then how do I do this in a way where people go, yeah, you know what, through the whole process, my realtor was right there with me. And I always felt like I was the hero. I mean, that's a huge statement. I was in this movie myself of buying a house, and I felt like I was the hero. So I love to ask people, right, if this is about intentions and setting intentions of a potential, how do you start to combine this idea of intention plus action plus resilience for them to ignite their progress, right, to create a hero for them in their own story? Dean Graziosi said this best: turn selling into your service. Love what you do so much that it would hurt you not to sell it. You're doing a disservice if you don't sell your business. So even as we take this, and this is outside of just connection and intention, but the intention of generating referrals is massive. I've always, my whole life, I've had a hard time like selling myself. And in particular, for the last 8 years of doing my own business, it's become very critical. And that message changed how I viewed it. Love what you do so much and how you do it that not promoting your services would be a disservice to any future potential client that you could have. Because you master intention, you own this moment, you look after them, you create active ways to engage them. And every single morning, right, you wake up and go, what is my purpose? Why am I doing this? And how do I give to this person? That puts you in this place to truly maximize what it is that you're providing, to then be able to create star-graving fans, right? To create loyalty beyond reason, to create people who go, I would not go to anyone else but this person. And so now we've kind of set all this up. We're going to wrap with 5 intention statements that you can set every single morning. These are at the back of your guides as well, just so you know you have this. But I'm just going to say these out to you as we go. You've already done these are 5 that I use every single day. I always tell people, choose what works best for you. But let me start with what's going through these. These 5 have changed my life. And just to give a quick little backup to this, over COVID, one of my sort of pet fun projects was studying CEOs, really successful CEOs, and looking at their morning rituals and finding out what is it that they do in the morning to lead to success. And nearly every single person that talks about it goes, first off is, I don't look at my phone for the first 30 minutes after I wake up. Because after I look at my phone, my whole day gets sucked into this, and I'm no longer able to back up then and reform my intentions. So whatever this looks like for you, find some space and create a little habit. This can be 5 minutes in your morning of setting intentions. But let me jump into this. The first one we already did. What's one word that describes who you will be today? All right. Every single day I find that this can be different, right? It's like, I need to be disciplined today. And when you set that intention in the morning to be disciplined and you reference it throughout, you can start to block off, right, the obstacles and the interjections into your day. Or maybe it's like, I need to be passionate about this. And you can find that level. This is a critical question every single morning. The second one, what is one task that I absolutely must complete today? I have found, right, if a lot of times there's like a list of 10 things, and what happens for me is I don't get to all 10, and then I beat myself up at night, and then I think about it, I don't sleep very well, and I wake up the next day going, why didn't I get that done? And I start this negative cycle. And so what I've come to realize is there's always like one task that absolutely must be done. If it's not done, I know I won't be in a good place. If it is done, even if I don't get everything else done, I'm in a better spot. So identify that for yourself in the morning. And then get this done. So closely linked to this is when will I do this? Set that intention already. It's not to say that deflections can't occur, but when the intention is there, you start to move in that direction. Third one way I will own the interaction with an important client today. Another way I like to do this one is what's one way I'll create the culture that I want around me. But so if this is client-based, take a client that's tough. right? That actually knows how to get under your skin in some way, whether you're openly showing that or not, or if it's an open house, right? It's like, how am I gonna own this interaction, right? And make sure that this person feels great, no matter what they're bringing to it. Own your 100%, right, of the 50% of every interaction. That's huge. The fourth one person that you need to connect with today, we talked about this at the beginning, and how you will do it. I believe that the how is just as important as the who. And it's like, okay, I really need to touch base with this client, or maybe it's a personal, this is really important too. If you have a personal relationship that's not thriving on all cylinders and it's drawing you down, I believe that energy will transfer over. So it might be, I need to talk with my husband, my wife, my child, my sister, my brother, my parent, because I need to create some healing in this relationship today. That's very, very important to me. So it can be, right, who is that person? And then the last one might be the most important one. What is one thing that you'll do to take care of your mental or physical well-being? I think a lot of times we hand off what we need in order to take care of everyone else around us. But we know, right, when we're operating from a place of wholeness, things change. I mean, the example that I think everyone is familiar with now, but it's a really accurate one, is if you're on a plane and the oxygen mask pops down and you're next to your child, who do you put it on first, right? And in theory, it would be like, I'm gonna put it on my child. I wanna make sure they're okay. But as you know, the airline tells you, put it on yourself first, because when you're whole, you can then take care of everyone around you. So, this one for me, in my background in hotels, people would often skip lunch. And then they'd be starving and hungry and walking around frustrated, right? And they're like, I'm so irritated, I'm so angry, I haven't eaten lunch today. And I would often ask, well, like, can you get some lunch? And sometimes people are like, no, like I can't eat, I'm too busy. And it's like, well, we know what you need, right? We know what you need to take care of yourself. So how do you get that food to be able to handle it? So what's your thing? Maybe it's a walk, maybe it's yoga, maybe it's a meditation, maybe it's music, maybe it's coffee. Take care of yourself to then be able to take care of others. And as we wrap up kind of today's content on this, there's one quote that I think sums up this whole idea of owning intentions to create an emotional connection, to make someone feel really good about themselves, to ultimately come full circle where they say, why do I feel this way? It's whenever I'm around my realtor, man, like, wow, they put me in a space where I feel great about myself. I want more of that. I'm going to tell everyone about that, right? So the full circle comes, and it's the Maya Angelou quote that everybody knows. People will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel, right? This mastermind is really about feelings of emotional connections that starts with every single morning, what's my intention? How you do anything is how you do everything, right? How do I start to maximize and how do I become aware of what's clicking in my head that can deter me? So you'll notice on your handouts, the last couple questions after your intentions are, what could get in the way? What obstacles? Because then you can already set an intention to how to get around that obstacle or push through that obstacle. And then how do you create a habit of doing this? Really, really important. Different models say different things, but about 30 straight days starts to create a habit. So I encourage you as we wrap up this session today, like, how can you set like 5 questions for yourself, whether it's those ones that we talked about today or you set different ones, and commit to doing this every single morning, to laying this firm roadmap to be able to own your interactions, both in business and in life. I'll wrap with this final statement, everyone. This idea of making people feel special about themselves is so true for our relationships in our home lives as well. Make your husband, wife, partner, make them feel great about themselves because they're around you. If you're lucky enough to have children and parents that are still alive, make them feel great about themselves when you are around them. Like, this is the success, right, of really turning it into different relationships and making it work for everyone around. So with that said, I will wrap the content. We'll open it up if there's any questions. I saw a few comments too. I'll make sure I will send the slides to Crystal so she can distribute a PDF of the slides for you as well. If there's, please feel free, drop any thoughts, comments, questions. It's unfair that I got to be the only one to speak in this webinar, of course, but if there's any comments that are hitting for you, such a great way to learn through others. Yeah, okay, and Arabelle, I see, remember their story better than remember their names. I mean, that's great, right? It's like, okay, I know their story. Let me connect with them through their story. Thanks, DJ. Yes. Thanks, Judy. Love it. Yeah, I will make sure we get you the slides. And that guide, by the way, the activation guide, I really encourage you to do this, everyone. Take a few minutes, some point today, just go through. It's form fillable and just answer a question for each human need, right? Understood, control, belong, feel special, reach potential. What's one little thing I want to do in my interactions with my clients? Thank you, Daniel and Carolyn. Thanks, Gina. Thanks, Darcy. Thanks, Thomas. Yeah, I believe that's the whole goal, right? Just let's get uncomfortable to see what else exists in us for this space. Linda, thanks so much. Yeah, let's go conquer. Thanks, Noel. Appreciate it. Yeah. TG and guaranteed rate. Thank you. Hey, Kyle. Good to see you. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate the words. Yeah. Sometimes life gets so crazy, right? It's really just about slowing things down, bringing it back into that power of like, let me set some intentions for this day. Let me be the owner of my day, not allowing, as much as possible the things that come to shift into what I have to be that day.
Okay. Thank you, Corey Campbell. Excellent presentation. Intentions, connections, and make your bed.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for attending, and thank you to the sponsors, Guarantee Rate and Title Guarantee. And before you leave, please take a minute to fill in the evaluation. Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon.
Aloha, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.